Hello, and welcome to Tabletopics with Bill. Today I am going to reveal some of my homebrew rules.
I know more than you.
Okay, so this video suggestion was made in a comment on the YouTube channel by Prima Fascia 5029, who asked if I have a video where I cover any of my house rules. And the truth is, I have a bunch of videos, but I decided that maybe it was a good idea to make one that kind of encapsulated everything. So here goes. What are homebrew rules? Well, basically when a person is playing a tabletop role-playing game and they either don't understand the mechanics for that game, or maybe that game's mechanics are a little too clunky or crunchy, or they just don't like them, they modify or make up their own rules. And that's effectively what a homebrew or a house rule is. I have done this for a long time. I've been playing tabletop role-playing games for 46 years. Yep, that's right, math. So I'm going to talk about this in different categories, okay? So the first category I'm going to do is rolling up characters. There are tons of different ways to roll up characters. If you are playing OSR games, old school role-playing games, or original D&D, or basic D&D, there are methods. You can do 3d6 straight down the line. And what that means is you roll 3d6 and you go literally straight down the line. So whatever you get for each of those things is what that ability score is. I don't necessarily like any of the straight down the line methods because it kind of randomizes what you're going to make. And it's fine for one shots, but like if you're doing a campaign, you kind of want, as a player, and your players typically want some agency in terms of determining what class they want to make. So being able to assign the roles versus going straight down the line is an option that is better, in my opinion. Now, how can you do that? Well, in like 3rd edition, 3.5, 4th, 5th edition D&D, you could do point buy. That gives you the most control over your ability scores, or you could do any of the rolling things. So what's the difference between point buy and rolling? Rolling gives you that splendor of randomness, the thrill of maybe rolling really well, but also the risk of rolling poorly. So if you're doing rolls, you could do 3d6 where you assign them. You could do 4d6 where you drop the lowest roll and then you assign them. You can do 4d6 where you drop the lowest roll, or you could do 3d6 reroll ones. You could do 4d6 where you can reroll ones and drop the lowest roll. All of those are viable options. Also, I created a dumb way of rolling up characters really fast, which is the bastard system. It's where you just roll 6 d20s. And if you get a 1 through 5, that becomes a 6. If you get a 19 or 20, that becomes an 18. It is the fastest way to roll up characters, but also the absolutely most random way to do that. With my bastard system, which you could look up on the channel, I also have it so that if the net of your modifiers is negative, you just re-roll the whole set. So if you roll like a bunch of 6s, 7s, and 8s, and you have just minuses everywhere, you just re-roll the whole set of 6. However you want to do that rolling thing is up to you, but I have done variations of rolling. Sometimes I've done 3d6 re-roll the lowest. I've done 3d6 re-roll ones. I've done 4d6 drop the lowest. I've done 4d6 re-roll ones and drop the lowest. It depends on how, powerful you want those characters to be starting off. And usually I try to tie whatever system I choose to the setting. So for example, in a lot of the continents and specific time periods in my original world of Cacapulon, arcane magic is prohibited. So there's no enchanted items. There are very rarely any kind of potions. No magic weapons, no magic armor. So in the absence of enchanted items and magic items, I tend to typically allow the players to have more heroic rolls, so I'll use systems like 4d6 drop the lowest or 4d6 reroll ones and drop the lowest. Recently, I experimented with a weird system where I had them roll 5d6 and they just picked the best 3. And it didn't really raise the highs of the highs, it would just kind of bring everything up to the middle. So what you typically had were rolls that were above average, but not extremely above average. Any of those system works, but those are all different variations and house rules that I've done for rolling up characters. On to the next topic, class options. So in a lot of like original D&D, basic D&D, and a lot of the retro clones and OSR games like Lamentations of the Flame Princess, they have a system where races are actually classes. So like dwarf, halfling, and elf in Lamentations of the Flame Princess and a lot of other retro clones is your actual class. I don't like that. I've never liked that. I grew up playing advanced Dungeons and Dragons where you had a class and a race, not just a race as a class. In games like Lamentations, I have it set in a part of my world and a time in my world where there are not dwarves and elves and halflings. But if a player wants the mechanics of those race as classes, of those demi-humans as they're called, then I will reskin them. So like, for example, if somebody wants to play an elf, I'll let them do that and just have a human scout. Or if you wanted to play a halfling, you could be a woodsman or a ranger. It's basically just taking that halfling class and the abilities associated with it and reskinning it as a human of some other class. The title doesn't really matter. You're just using the mechanics. So that's another house rule that I allow in my games, since dwarves, elves, and halflings don't exist in most of the settings where I'm running Lamentations of the Flame Princess. On to a next big topic, skill checks. A lot of OSR games and rules light fantasy games don't actually have proficiencies and skills. So how do you resolve situations where that would come up? If the game mechanics don't have certain talents, like in Lamentations, the specialist class, also known as like a thief or a rogue, they get like pips in certain things where if they want to choose, to add these pips to certain skills like disarming traps, opening locks, that kind of stuff, sneak attack, they can do that. And then on a D6, that's how many dots they have for a success. So if they put 2 dots into something or 3 dots into something, they have a 3 in 6 chance. That is specifically more modeled after old school D&D, right? And I think it's okay for that class, the specialist, but what about for every other kind of skill check that you would have in a game? I think it comes down to 2 things. Number one, always, no matter what game you're playing, have the player explain what they want to do and how they want to do it. That's right off the bat. Have them narratively explain, here's what I want to do. So if you have a situation where a player wants to bluff their way past the guards. So typically in a game, that would be a charisma-based roll. Now, I have 2 different options for you to consider for homebrew. You could have them do what's called a roll under. Now, the roll under mechanic is not mine. I didn't invent it. Other people have been using it for a long time. But the idea is that you just choose what ability score best fits the task that the player is trying to achieve with their character, and then you have them roll under that ability score. So say your character has a 12 charisma, and they're trying to bluff their way past the guards. You would have them interact with the guards, and then you'd have them make a charisma roll under. So they would roll on a d20. If that roll was 12 or less, based on their charisma score, then they would succeed. If they rolled over, then they failed, and the guards are calling them on their bluff, and there's going to be trouble. So any ability score task, you just decide what that task is and ask the player how they want to do it, and then you have them roll under that ability score. So it keeps it really fast. It keeps it moving. It's easy. Another way to do it, if you don't like the idea of having to roll low in order to be successful and you want to maintain that whole roll high aesthetic, is to just set a basic difficulty. So in the same way, you have the player explain what they want to do. Then you decide what ability score best fits. And then you, as the GM, add one more step, which is just deciding what the difficulty rating is going to be. So if, for example, same scenario, they want to bluff the guards, and the guards are really tired and they kind of don't care about their job, you could just say that that is a easy task. So you tell the player, all right, make a charisma roll. So you're going to roll a d20, add or subtract your charisma modifier to your roll and beat a 9 or higher. That's an easy thing. So all I did was just figure an easy is 9 or higher. Something that's a normal task would be like 12 or higher. Something that's maybe hard would be 15 or higher, and something that would be extremely challenging would be like 18 or higher. So I just went by increments of 3 on a d20, add or subtract your modifier. So it just adds one little step, but it also adds some a little less of a binary thing. Like, the roll under is more like either you succeed or you don't, whereas this is kind of grades of difficulty that you can add. It does add that extra step though. But if your players are more used to games where rolling high is good, then you could just do that second option where they have to meet or beat the number, the target number, in order to succeed on their roll. I didn't invent a lot of these things, so a lot of them can be found in other games, and other people have been doing them, but these are just things that I have used in different games like D&D and Castles and Crusades, Lamentations of the Flame Princess, and so on. All right, now critical hit damage. If you know my channel, you know that I invented the badass system, the Bill Allan damage alternative scoring system for calculating critical hit damage. So when you have a combat situation and a player rolls a nat 20 on the d20 roll, however the game system implements critical hit damage might be flawed. In a lot of the D&D based games, they have you just roll double the dice. Well, if you're rolling with a short sword, let's say it does d6 damage, and you roll 2d6s, and you roll a 1 and a 3, that's a total of 4 damage. And that kind of sucks, considering that you got a natural 20. So in the Bill Allan damage alternative scoring system, I have you max out the first damage die, and then roll the second die as an addition to that damage. So instead of rolling 2d6, you max out so you have 6 right off the bat. And then you roll a second d6 and add it to that. So let's say I roll a 3. Now I've done 9 damage. Likewise, you double your modifiers for anything that would include damage bonuses if you're using those in a game system that has that. And you would add in, or rather do the same system for things like sneak attack damage. So if somebody has an additional 2d6 worth of sneak attack damage, they would have 12 plus 2d6 more. What this does is it makes your damage on a critical hit way more profoundly epic. But remember, GMs, that in my system, this also applies to NPCs and monsters. So if they roll a nat 20, those characters are going to be getting hit pretty hard. The last category is about communicating with deities. So a lot of games don't have really great mechanical ways for players to interact with their deities. If you're using divine magic and deities in your game, a lot of times there's no real great way for a character to do that. Or they limit it to only divine classes like clerics and paladins and even sometimes even druids, but sometimes not druids. So for me, I felt like it was important in my original world for anyone to have even a remote chance to communicate with their deity. And so I created a whole mechanical system for it. And that system is referred to as piety. So a pious person, someone who has faith in the divine, should have some small percentage chance to be able to do that. And I thought percentile was the best way to do it. So how I specifically do it is I have a whole system that I outline and share in my game that I can use with pretty much any fantasy gaming mechanics. Like, doesn't matter if it's an OSR game, Castles and Crusades, D&D 5e, it works in all of those. Basically, your piety summarizes the relationship between mortals and the gods. The gods expect their faithful to demonstrate their faith with gratitude, offerings, sacrifices, and so forth. Your base piety is determined by your class and level, with some special circumstances granted to the divine-based classes. So for clerics, they're like the top tier. They take their highest stat that is relevant to their faith, which usually is their wisdom. They multiply that times 2, and then they add their level and add the appropriate role-playing bonus. So I have a whole table that indicates like the things that a character can do to increase the chances of them communicating with the gods. And these add a few points or sometimes subtract. Like if a character has basically just been nagging at their god for special blessings and favors, but hasn't really done anything to show their faith, then that can be subtracted from their role. So as an example, if Adam the Holy has a 16 wisdom and he's level 4, he would have a base piety of 36. So that's 16 times 2, which is 32, plus 4, which is 36. So that's a 36% chance on a D100 roll. So if you roll the percentile dice and you roll 36 or less, that means you successfully communicate with your deity. For paladins, druids, and monks, they take their highest stat and they multiply it times 1.5 and then add their level and add the appropriate role-playing bonus. So if Frank the Paladin has a 16 wisdom and he's level 4, he would have a base piety of 28. All other classes, so not just the divines, but any other class, any other character, they take their highest stat, they add the appropriate role-playing bonus, and that's it. They don't add a level bonus in. So if George the Fighter has a 16 strength, he would have a base piety of 16. That means that any character in my world using this system has a chance of being able to communicate with their god and perhaps ask favors or blessings. Whether they get those favors or blessings is up to you, but it's also up to how well the player has role-played that character's faith. How important has their faith been? How important has practicing their faith and their beliefs, and how consistently has the player role-played that? All of those are things that I take into account in my system. So I hope this little tour of some of my homebrew and house rules has been interesting or informative for you. If you have any other questions, please leave comments, or if you have suggestions for cool house rules or homebrew rules that you have encountered, please also comment below and let me know. I like to read the comments from my community, and I truly enjoy sharing these ideas with all of you. I hope all of your games go well, and if you want to continue to support the channel, you can do so in a variety of ways. You can like, subscribe, click on that notifications icon, and make sure that you click on the highest priority so that you are notified of all new video releases. You can post on social media and share links to videos that you enjoy watching. That helps drive traffic to the channel. And if you want to go that extra step, you can join us on my Patreon community, where you can pledge to support at any level that I would truly and deeply appreciate. Happy gaming, everybody. See you on the next video.
Well, hello, and welcome to Bill Allen World. I am Wizzy, the Wizard. I'm back once again to remind you to subscribe and click on the notifications button, and also watch videos that are over there. Tune in to the next episode of whatever show you were just watching, and watch other shows featuring Bill. He made me say that because he's a narcissist. Okay, bye.